चले श्रीमते भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेषा दुनियावादी पश्चादेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभो नित्यानंदा श्री अद्वैता गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरा भक्त वृंदा। Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Jaya Radha Radha Radhe, Jaya Radha Krishna Radha Krishna Radhe, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Prabhupada, Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Gurudev Maharaj Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, page 1 of Bhagavad Gita for the introduction prayer. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Unmilitam Yena Tasme Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadadi Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutapad Kamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvetam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesh Gopika Kanta Shri Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrinda Vrindeshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripasindubhya evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai. Shalina Mataji.
Hare Krishna. I was born in the darkest ignorance, and my spiritual master opened my eyes with the torch of knowledge. I offer my respectful obeisances unto him. When will Srila Rupa Goswami Prabhupada, who has established within this material world the mission to fulfill the desire of Lord Chaitanya, Give me shelter under his lotus feet. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master and unto the feet of all Vaishnavas. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Srila Rupa Goswami, along with his elder brother Sanatana Goswami, as well as Raghunatha Dasa, Raghunatha Bhatta, Gopala Bhatta, and Srila Jiva Goswami. I offer my respectful obeisances to Lord Krishna Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, along with Advaita Acharya, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and other associates. I offer my respectful obeisances to Srimati Radharani and Sri Krishna, along with their associates, Sri Lalita and Vishaka. O my dear Krishna, you are the friend of the distressed and the source of creation. You are the master of the gopis and the lover of Radharani. I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I offer my respects to Radharani, whose bodily complexion is like molten gold and who is the queen of Vrindavan. You are the daughter of King Vrishabhanu and you are very dear to Lord Krishna. I offer my respectful obeisances unto the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They can fulfill the desires of everyone, just like desired trees, and they are full of compassion for the fallen souls. I offer my obeisances to Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita, Gadadhara, Srivasa, and all others in the line of devotion. Hare Krishna.
Okay, Hare Krishna. Thank you, Shalina Mataji. So we're on chapter 5, verse 26, right? So we'll try and conclude chapter 5 today. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. All right. Okay, so welcome to our newcomers. Vijay Prabhu, I see, is here, and who else do we have? Shandir Prabhu. Okay, right. Chapter 5, verse 26. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Kama Krodha Vimuktanam, Yatinam cha yata chetasam, Abhito Brahma Nirvanam, Vartate Vititatmanam, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So here, the Lord is speaking to Arjuna and he says, those who are free from anger and all material desires, who are self-realized, self-disciplined, and constantly endeavoring for perfection, are assured of liberation in the Supreme in the very near future. Right? So the Lord is giving them more recipes now on how to realize the Supreme, or how to realize Him, to realize Krishna, right? And Srila Prabhupada's purport is as follows. Of the saintly persons who are constantly engaged in striving towards salvation, one who is Krishna conscious is best of all. The Bhagavatam confirms this fact as follows. Yad pada pankaja palasa vilasa bhaktya karmashayam gratitam udhar kathayanti santah tadvana rikta mayat matayo yayato pi ruddha sroto ganastam aranam bhaja vasudevam. So it means just try to worship in devotional service Vasudeva, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Even great sages are not able to control the forces of the senses as effectively as those who are engaged in transcendental bliss by serving the lotus feet of the Lord, uprooting the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. In the conditioned soul, the desire to enjoy the fruitive results of work is so deep-rooted that it is very difficult even for the great sages to control such desires, despite their great endeavors. The devotee of the Lord, constantly engaged in devotional service in Krishna consciousness, perfect in self-realization, very quickly attains liberation in the Supreme. Owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he always remains in trance. So let's just stop here for a brief moment and just try and absorb Srila Prabhupada's thoughts and references. So Krishna starts off by saying that firstly, one has to be free from, these bad anarthas within our hearts. And he named here anger. We must be free from anger and material desires, right? And we must be self-disciplined and endeavor, but not just now and then, but constantly, uses the word constantly endeavoring for perfection. And such a person is definitely assured liberation in the Supreme very soon, right? And then Prabhupada says here that saintly people are constantly engaged in striving for what? For liberation or salvation, right? They practice different methods of yoga, as we have extensively read in Prabhupada's thoughts in the previous chapters and verses. There's different types of yogic practices. And we do have saintly people who practice this. And their goal is ultimately to reach the Lord, right? To reach the stage of liberation or transcendental point. That's where they want to reach. But it's a long route. Now, Prabhupada is saying here, one who is in Krishna consciousness is the best of all. And this reference here says, this reference from the Bhagavatam says, just try to worship in devotional service. We spoke so much about devotional service. And there's so many references in Bhagavad Gita that point to that. So many references in Srimad Bhagavatam. So many times our acharyas have given this to us in class as well, that if we practice, just try to worship the Lord in the mood of devotion, in the mood of bhakti, practice bhakti yoga. And that is a sure way of reaching your goal. And it is definitely also a far quicker way and a very sweet way as well. Sweet, I say, because when you do devotional service, you are engaging in a relationship with the Lord, right? You are serving the Lord and the Lord is getting pleased. So if you please the Lord, you'll automatically be very happy within yourself. Remember last week we missed it, the previous week. We read about devotees who are very pleased within themselves internally. Now this internal peace comes from the practice of devotional service, because whom are you serving? You're serving the Supreme, right? That means you are engaging in a relationship with Him. Now, engaging in a relationship with the Supreme Lord is definitely going to put your consciousness in a pure state. And when your consciousness is pure, then you feel this happiness from within, right? Right, and also very nicely here, this verse points out here, see, by engaging in such activities, what happens? You uproot the deep-grown desire for fruitive activities. So the more you serve devotionally, the less attached you become to fruitive activities, to material activities. This devotional service actually uproots this attachment. And I said that we've all got these anarthas within our heart, like Krishna says here, anger and material desires and lust and greed and all of that. But this devotional service will uproot all those weeds from within our hearts. Right. Now, a devotee of the Lord constantly engaged in service of Krishna and Krishna consciousness is perfect in self-realization. See, it says here again, by vision, by meditating and by touch, only do fish, the tortoise, and birds maintain their offspring. Similarly, do I also, O Padmaji. This is the translation of the Sanskrit above, right? That example. And it's further explained here. Prabhupada says, the fish brings up its offsprings by looking at them. Listen to this, very interesting. I even bolded it. The tortoise brings up its offspring simply by meditation. The eggs of a tortoise are laid on land, and the tortoise meditates on the eggs while in water. Okay, we refer to them as turtles here locally, right? So the eggs are on the land, but the turtle is meditating in the water. Similarly, the devotee in Krishna consciousness, although far away from the Lord's abode, can elevate himself to that abode simply by thinking of Him constantly. by engagement in Krishna consciousness. This engagement in Krishna consciousness means engaging in devotional activities, in devotional service. Right? He does not feel the pangs of material miseries. This state of life is called Brahma Nirvana, or the absence of material miseries due to being constantly immersed in the Supreme. Isn't that so absolutely sweet? Look at this beautiful analogy. The tortoise is so far away from its eggs, but it meditates and protects the eggs and has that relationship with his eggs, even while he's in the water. The fish only looks at the offsprings and maintains like that. So what about us? We are so far, far, far away from the spiritual world. How do we establish that connection? How? By engagement in Krishna consciousness, by thinking of the Lord and engaging in those activities. This analogy is very beautiful. Now, very interestingly here, we come across in this purport, owing to his complete knowledge in self-realization, he is always in trance. What is your understanding of trance? I even highlighted this word because it's used very often in our communities, trance. So what is this trance? And how do we look at this word trance from a devotional eye? From understanding what the Lord is saying to us in scripture, in Bhagavad Gita that we are reading now. From listening to Srila Prabhupada's purports. We speak over and over again about transcendental knowledge. Situate yourself in transcendence. And now here, Prabhupada is saying, owing to his complete knowledge and self-realization, he always remains in trance. So what is this trance? That's my discussion point. Anybody want to share quickly? What do you all think is meant by this? What trance is Prabhupada or Krishna referring to here? Paramatma Prabhu?
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna? Kadruta
I
Mataji?
think it's a deep meditation and to be our mind absorbed in on the lotus feet of Krishna.
Yes. That's it. Anybody else? What do you all understand by this? Anybody? Shalina Mataji?
Hare Krishna, I would think it means to remain like in a state of consciousness, of God consciousness.
Okay, we say remain in state of God consciousness.
Okay. And I think someone who's not fully engaged in this material world and aware of a material nature.
Yeah. So to transcend, right?
Yes.
To transcend what? To transcend material nature.
Yeah.
Or material consciousness, I would say. To put it better, right? Transcend material consciousness. But you often hear, Paramatma Prabhu, anything from your side?
For me, Maji, it's constantly thinking of Krishna.
Constant
Krishna consciousness.
thinking of Lord.
Krishna consciousness.
I think Kadruta Mataji said same thing on these lines, remain in the state of God consciousness, transcendental to material consciousness, constantly thinking of God. And how? How do we do this? Veronica Mataji?
Chanting.
Chanting. Okay, anybody else? Somebody else? Rasavati Mataji?
Detachment from self-gratification.
Detach from? Is that what you said?
Self-gratification. From our senses, from self-gratification.
Oh, okay. To remove. So you're saying to remove the attachment to sense gratification. Right? So anybody else?
Hare Krishna Mataji. By
Rasavati
serving
Mataji.
the Lord, cleaning his altar place, cleaning the temple, serving him with love and devotion.
Cleaning temple. Yeah, you can These are forms of devotional service now, right? Clean the temple, you can cook for the Lord and
Iron
offer
his clothes.
and accept as what? As prasadam, right?
Prasadam.
Whatever food we offer to the Lord, we eat it now, right? And we accept it as prasadam. So by doing these various activities, you said iron as well. Maybe you can iron for the Guru. You can iron for the Guru. You know, you can take care of deities. Make garlands. And you know, most importantly, what else can serve? Devotees. And this pleases Krishna most, doesn't it? Okay, so by us engaging in these various different kinds of activities, it keeps us constantly thinking of the Lord. And by constantly thinking of the Lord, you chanting and all of that, what happens? You start transcending this material consciousness. And then you go and remain in this state of God consciousness. And remaining in the state of God consciousness is a state of transcendence. That is trance. So we must be very careful of our understanding of trance. That is trance. Not to go into a state where the mind is temporarily unaware of its surroundings. Sometimes you hear of these cases where a person is unaware of his surroundings and it's said that the person is in trance. But when the person comes back into normal consciousness, he's doing every other activity that he should not be doing. That's not transcendence. That's not God consciousness. God consciousness is when you are purely God conscious and you refrain from activities that is not prescribed in scripture. Not that you are in trance now and then you come out of trance and you are breaking the regulated principles as laid out in scripture. Isn't it? Okay, so we must understand this very carefully. Okay, those are nice points. Thank you. Right, next, who's reading the next verse? There's a double verse here, 27 and 28. You can share and read. Veronica Mataji, you want to read one? Kadruta Mataji can read the next if you want to break it up. Verse 27, who's reading? Sparshan Kritva. Hare Krishna. Everybody hear me? Thank you, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Sparsan Kritva Bahir, Bahyam Chakshush, Jaivantarem, Bruvaham, Paranapan Mau, Samau Kritva, Nasabhyantara Charinau, Yatendriya Mano Buddhir, Munir Moksha Parayanaha, Vigate Cha Bayakrodo, Yaksada Muktaeva Saha. Shutting out of external senses objects, keeping the eyes and vision concentrated between the two eyebrows, suspending the onward and outward braces within the nostrils, and thus controlling the mind, senses, and intelligence. The transcendentalist, aiming at liberation, becomes free from desire, fear, and anger. One who is always in this state is certainly liberated. Purpose. Being engaged in Krishna consciousness, one can immediately understand one's spiritual identity, and then one can understand the Supreme Lord by means of devotional service. When one is well situated in devotional service, one comes to the transcendental position, qualified to feel the presence of the Lord in the sphere of one's activity. Particular position is called liberation in the Supreme. After explaining the above principles of liberation in the Supreme, the Lord gives instruction to Arjuna as to how one can come to that position by the practice of the mysticism or yoga known as Ashtanga Yoga, which is divisible into an eightfold procedure called Yama, Niyama, Asana, Pranayama, Pratyahara, Dharana, Dhyana, and Samadhi. In the sixth chapter, the subject of yoga is explicitly detailed, and at the end of the fifth, it's the only preliminary explained. One has to drive out the sense objects such as sound, touch, form, taste, and smell by the pratyahara process in yoga. Then keeps the vision of the eyes between the two eyebrows and concentrate on the tip of the nose with half closed lids. Hare Krishna. Or I continue.
Krishna.
There is no benefit
Yeah, you
in
can continue.
closing the eyes altogether because then there is every chance of falling asleep, nor is there benefit in opening the eyes completely because then there is the hazard of being attracted by sense objects. The bracing movement is restrained within the nostrils by neutralizing the up moving and down moving air within the body. By practice of such yoga, one is able to gain control over the senses, refrain from outward sense objects, and thus prepare oneself for liberation in the Supreme. This yoga process helps one become free from all kinds of fear and anger, and thus feel the presence of the Lord in the transcendental situation. In other words, Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing yoga principles. This will be thoroughly explained in the next chapter. A Krishna consciousness person, however, being always engaged in devotional service, does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. This is a better way of controlling the senses than Ashtanga Yoga. Hare Krishna. Thank you,
Hare
Mataji.
Krishna. Thank you, Katruta Mataji. So you see, the Lord is giving us this process. Yes, there is a process. Everything's laid out in the Vedas. The Vedas come from Krishna, so it is not incorrect. There are processes in place. There are different types of yogas in place. As highlighted here, Prabhupada is explaining to us that by the practice of these different kinds of yogas, there's a process, Ashtanga yoga, and then that's divided into 8 different parts. If you practice that yoga, right? Yam, Niyam, Asana, all of that. And eventually you reach that stage of Samadhi, right? The trance states, where you are in deep meditation and you realize yourself within. You realize the Supreme. But that is a very long process. So further on, it's discussed here, and Prabhupada says to us that Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of executing yoga principle. Krishna consciousness is also a yoga. It is bhakti yoga or devotional practice, devotional service. Huh? And he says this is the easiest way. And this will be thoroughly explained in our chapter 6. Right? Chapter 6 is the second 6 chapters. From 6 onwards is the second 6 chapters we're going to do deals with bhakti yoga in detail. Right? So you're going to get much more information on this process from next week. Right? And a Krishna conscious person, however, being always engaged in devotional service does not risk losing his senses to some other engagement. So it is not harsh and difficult on the senses, practicing this devotion. Right? Because you see, you speak of Ashtanga yoga here, see how austere it is. You can't close your eyes. You close your eyes and practice, you have the risk of falling asleep, right? You leave your eyes open and do your practice of meditation. There's all this chances of getting distracted naturally. So you've got to keep your eyelids half closed. It's austere to do that for a long period of time, right? Then you've got to concentrate between your eyebrows, and there's different other types of yogas where you control your outgoing and your ingoing breath, and you reverse the breath to keep it at a certain point. It's very austere. And it's a very long process. And as we know, Life here in this present stage called Kali Yuga is very, very short. Because this is the dark age, it's a very sinful age that we are living in. And over the different millenniums, the lifespan of humans have diminished. We don't live for such long periods of time. I imagine if you start this whole yoga, which is not wrong, it's correct, you can do it. It is doable, it is permittable, as the Lord has said. But does time permit us to do that? Are we going to perfect this yoga in this lifetime? These are the practical questions we need to ask ourselves. So therefore, Krishna has given us in Bhagavad Gita the easiest method. That is the yoga of bhakti. Bhakti yoga, practice of devotional service. And that itself will take you to the same goal. Right? So I used this analogy before, and this example before, and I'm going to just state it again. It's like if you have a choice, you reach this big, tall building. Say you go to Dubai. Dubai has all these skyscrapers, right? And then they have staircases going up to the 50th, 60th, 100th floor or whatever. And naturally, you would take the lift because it'll get you to the same point, just the same goal that you want to reach, same goal that the staircase is taking you to. But naturally, you're going to take the quicker route, the easier route. Isn't it? Likewise, Krishna consciousness, practice devotional service, takes you to the same platform. It'll take you in such a beautiful, jovial way. So much more easily, so much quicker. See, that's what Prabhupada is telling us here. That Krishna is telling us here. Okay. Right, next, anybody want to read this last verse? And then we can go into some discussion. Okay, Veronica,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oktaram yajnatapasam sarva loka maheshwaram Shudram sarva bhutanam jnanatva mam santim richati. A person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned souls within the clutches of the illusionary energy are all anxious to attain peace in the material world, but they do not know the formula for peace, which is explained in this part of the Bhagavad Gita. The greatest peace formula is simply this: Lord Krishna is a beneficiary in all human activities. Men should offer everything to the transcendental service of the Lord, because he is the proprietor of all planets and the demigods thereon. No one is greater than he. He is greater than the greatest of the demigods, Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. In the Vedas, the Supreme Lord is described as Tam Ishvaranam Paramam Maheshwaram. Under the spell of illusion, living entities are trying to be lords of all they survey, but actually they are dominated by the material energy of the Lord. The Lord is the master of material nature, and the conditioned souls are under the stringent rules of material nature. And unless one understands these bare facts, it is not possible to achieve peace in the world, either individually or collectively. This is the sense of Krishna consciousness. Lord Krishna is the supreme predominator, and all living entities, including the great demigods, are his subordinates. One can attain perfect peace only in complete Krishna consciousness. This fifth chapter is a practical explanation of Krishna consciousness, generally known as Karma Yoga. The question of mental speculation as to how Karma Yoga can give liberation is answered herewith. To work in Krishna consciousness is to work with the complete knowledge of the Lord as the predominator. Such work is not different from transcendental knowledge. Hare Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, and Jnana Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. Krishna consciousness means to work in full knowledge of one's relationship with the Supreme Absolute Truth, and the perfection of this consciousness is full knowledge of Krishna, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A pure soul is the eternal servant of God, as his fragmental part and parcel. He comes in contact with Maya, illusion, due to the desire to lord it over Maya. And that is the cause of his many, many sufferings. As long as he is in contact with matter, he has to execute work in terms of material necessities. Krishna consciousness, however, brings one unto spiritual life, even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter, for it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. The more one is advanced, the more he is freed from the clutches of matter. The Lord is not partial towards anyone. Everything depends on one's practical performance of duties in Krishna consciousness, which helps one control senses in every aspect and conquer the influence of desire and anger. And one who stands fast in Krishna consciousness, controlling the above-mentioned passions, remains factually in the transcendental stage or Brahma Nirvana. The Eightfold Yoga mysticism is automatically practiced in Krishna consciousness because the ultimate purpose is served thereon. There is a gradual process of elevation in the practice of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dharana, dhyana, and samadhi. But these only preface perfection by devotional service, which alone can award peace to the human being. It is the highest perfection of life. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport to the 5th chapter of Srimad Bhagavad Gita in the matter of Karma Yoga, or action in Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a long purport. Thank you very much. Okay, so the greatest peace formula is given here as well by Prabhupada. Right? What is the greatest peace formula? It is simple. Lord Krishna is a beneficiary in all human activities, and men, us, should therefore offer everything to his transcendental service. Right? Because he is the proprietor of all planets and demigods thereon. So basically, what he said here is that Krishna is the cause of creation, is a source of creation. Lord Brahma says this in his prayer to Krishna in the Brahma Samhita, that you are the cause of all causes. Sarva karana karanam. And he says, Ishvara Parama Krishna. Oh, Krishna, you are the, not controller, but the supreme controller. Ishvar means supreme. Right? Param, supreme. Ishvar is God. Param means supreme. So you are the supreme God, the supreme controller of everything and the source of creation. Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachit Ananda Vigraha Anadhir Adhir Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. That's the verse. Lord Brahma prays like that to Krishna. So, knowing this, we should apply this simple formula and attain the greatest peace by understanding and knowing his supreme position. Right. And also very interestingly here, Prabhupada says direct Krishna consciousness is Bhakti Yoga, which we spoke about, right? Devotional service is direct Krishna consciousness. You're placing your consciousnness directly in service of the Lord. That's what it means. And he says Gyan Yoga is a path leading to Bhakti Yoga. So with knowledge, when you have knowledge, it leads you to practicing bhakti or devotion. Right. Now, also, this is also very interesting, this point here. The Prabhupada says, Krishna consciousness, however, brings one into spiritual life even while one is within the jurisdiction of matter. For it is an arousing of spiritual existence by practice in the material world. This applies directly to all of us. We are trapped here in this material world. we are directly trapped in interacting with matter. Our bodies are made of matter. Everything around us reminds us of sense gratification and enjoyment, and actually traps us even further in this clutches of illusion or maya in this material world. But if we practice Krishna consciousness, even while in this material world, it brings us into spiritual life. So you can see how this practice of Krishna consciousness overrules this matter, even though we are in the jurisdiction of this material world. I thought that was very interesting as well. All right. So we concluded chapter 5 today, dear devotees. And we can enter into a little bit of a quick recap and discussion. Before I do that, I just want to okay. And we'll just talk quickly a little bit about chapter 5 for summary, right? The chapter opened where Arjuna said to Krishna, right? Prior to chapter 5, Krishna was asking Arjuna to do what? To renounce, to do all his work, to stand up and do his duty and fight, etc. Right? But before that, Krishna said to Arjuna, you must renounce all your work. Now Arjuna became very, very baffled. He was very confused. He said to Arjuna, to Krishna, first you asked me to renounce all my work. Then you recommend me to work in devotion. Now I am definitely confused. So please tell me which is more beneficial. That's how the chapter 5 opened. And then Krishna turned on and said to Arjuna, Arjuna, devotional service is better than renunciation of work. Right? And then he starts unfolding from there and explaining to Arjuna that even though you're going to be engaged in this work of fighting this battle in your duty, even though you're going to be working, you will not be working, because you will be renouncing your actions to me. You will be detaching yourself from the results of your action, and that is what is wanted. And that renouncing your working for me and giving up the fruits of those activities is actually work in devotion. And that is by far better. So it doesn't mean that Krishna did not mean that Arjuna must just leave the battlefield now, in that sense, renounce his work and go and enter another ashram, like sit in the forest and meditate like a brahmana. No. Krishna said to Arjuna, you are a Kshatriya. You need to stand on this battlefield and you need to fight for what is rightfully yours, because the opposition have wronged you. They have taken away from you what was yours. Your duty is to serve as a Kshatriya and protect your kingdom. You have to have a village or a kingdom to rule, because that is your duty. And you have to rule in a manner where you will take care of your subjects. You will have to rule with a spiritual mindset. And these people on the opposite side were ruling with demoniac mindsets. They were attached to sense gratification. They were attached to the kingdom. You are not attached. Arjuna wasn't attached. Arjuna didn't want the kingdom. He said in chapter 2, Krishna, I do not want to enjoy a blood-stained kingdom. Why should I kill my gurus, my relatives, my friends, only to enjoy this kingdom? But Krishna stepped in right there and said to Arjuna, it is not about you. It is not that you want to enjoy this kingdom. It is because I am one instructing you. Krishna is Lord. So that teaches us. We have to take his instructions from Bhagavad Gita very seriously. Krishna says, do this, do that, do that. Understand that he is authority. And when authority speaks, we need to follow, first and foremost. Secondly, he made Arjuna understand. That's one. Secondly, he made Arjuna understand that it is his duty to fight. Likewise, it applies to us, right? We all have our respective duties in this world. We have duties to our children, our parents, our siblings, our teachers, even our work colleagues. We've got duties in different varieties of life, right? Different sectors. And we need to perform our duty. But in performing our duty, we must not lose sight of the fact that whatever results are attached to it, we need to offer that to the Lord. And when we offer the results, and all glory to the Lord, with the understanding that intelligence comes from him and ability comes from him, then that kind of understanding and that kind of consciousness is called Krishna consciousness. And that kind of work is called devotional work or devotional service. Right? And Krishna went on to tell Arjuna, you must do it, Arjuna, by being free from dualities. Dualities being happiness and distress. Look at everything with an equal eye. And he went on to explain to Arjuna that Arjuna, one who works in devotion, he said, is a pure soul. And he controls his mind and senses, and he is dear to everyone, and everyone is dear to him. So, although he's always working, such a man is never entangled. So, in other words, we spoke about Paramatma over and over again. Krishna talks about Paramatma. Prabhupada talks about Paramatma. Who is Paramatma? Paramatma is the super soul, or Krishna, seated in the hearts of every living entity. So if you look at another person and understand that Paramatma or Krishna or God is situated in his heart, then such a person will be dear to everybody, will treat everybody as dear to himself. And he himself will become dear to everybody. And such a person will never be entangled, Krishna says, although he is always working. Because he's working in devotion, in a respectful manner. Right? And Krishna went on to speak about duty without attachment and how everything should be surrendered to him. And when you do that, then you are unaffected by sinful reactions. So he said to Arjuna there as well, Arjuna, you stand up and fight and you kill those opponents because they are aggressors. They have broken the laws of religion. Duryodhana and his brothers disrobed the wife of Arjuna in a big, huge assembly of males in the palace. That is such a sinful activity. They set fire to the house of the Pandavas while the Pandavas were in exile for 14 years or 13 years, I can't remember the duration, when they were banished to the forest. They set fire to their house. That is an aggressor. We discussed the 6 types of aggressors previously. One who steals another wife, one who steals land. Isn't Duryodhana and they were stealing land? They wanted to steal the kingdom from Arjuna and his brothers. So they were aggressors. I wanted them to be vanquished. So therefore, this war was nothing more than a religious war. It was not a war, from Arjuna and them's points, not a war for trying to acquire material wealth or sense gratification. All right. And Krishna said, so if you act in this way, Arjuna, without attachment, act in devotion and surrender everything to me, you won't be affected by sinful reaction. So don't worry, if you kill them, that's no sinful action attached to your doing. Right. And yeah, so steady. One must be steadily devoted. A steadily devoted soul attains what? Unadulterated peace. And one who is not in union with the divine or with the Lord, one who is greedy and attached to the results of his activities, wants to take all the credit for himself, such people become entangled. Krishna said that. I used to put my phone on silent. I didn't realize. Okay, there we go. Right. And Krishna goes on to say that the embodied spirit, right, who is us, the souls seated within the chambers of this heart, this embodied spirit, us souls, atmas, we can become the master of the city of this body. And it does not create activities, nor does he induce people to act, nor does he create the fruits of action. All this is enacted by the 3 modes of material nature. So you will understand this, The embodied soul basically controls his nature mentally and renounces all actions, and he resides happily in the city of 9 gates. The city of 9 gates is actually a body. The body has, this material body has 9 openings, right? 2 ears, 2 nostrils, 2 eyes, etc. Therefore, it's referred to as the city of 9 gates. And who's residing in the city of the 9 gates? Us, the Atmas, the soul. And that Atma, that soul, that minute soul can only be happy in the city of 9 gates if he realizes his true position with the Lord and acts for the pleasure of the Lord and renounces all his fruits of activities too. Okay, he becomes peaceful. We spoke about being peaceful from within. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which near-sense is destroyed, I'm reading this chapter, verse 16, right? Translation. When, however, one is enlightened with the knowledge by which near-sense is destroyed, then his knowledge reveals everything as the sun lights up everything in daytime. Right. And those whose minds are established in sameness or equanimity, Krishna says we must learn to handle everything equally. When one reaches that stage, then he has already conquered the conditions of birth and death. That person is flawless like Brahman. And he is situated in Brahman, in God consciousness. Okay. So in a nutshell, this is what chapter 5 was all about. And Krishna ends up by saying that a person in full consciousness of me, knowing me to be the ultimate beneficiary of all sacrifices and austerities, the supreme lord of all planets and demigods, and the benefactor and well-wisher of all living entities, attains peace from the pangs of material miseries. So if we have this understanding, then we can escape these clutches and these pangs of material miseries. How? By being in full consciousness of God. So it's a very, very interesting chapter. We end here today, chapter 5, and we will begin with chapter 6 next week. But before we leave, we can enter into a quick discussion and then end up with Nrsimhadev's plans. Okay, dear devotees, so can we open the chat and hear from everybody?